Alright, like, click, subscribe, do all that. You already know what time it is. It's Netflix time. This movie's called The Red Sea Diver Resort. Undercover agents opened up a fake hotel to real tourists as a cover-up to help smuggle thousands of Ethiopian refugees to safety, and it's also inspired by true events. So it's a drama thriller that came out in 2019, 2 hours and 10 minutes long. It's got Chris Evans and Michael Kenneth Williams in it. So let's just get right to it. Oh yeah, by the way, spoiler alert. So right at the back, we start off with the Maserati tribe riding around in guns, and they run around lighting homes on fire, trying to kill off a bunch of refugees. And here we have Kabide. He's one helping out a lot of refugees, trying to make sure that they get refuge and, safer homes. But apparently her little boy is missing. And they're trying to hurry up and get people to safety before these infidels come and start causing ruckus. Meanwhile, the little boy that's missing is hiding in the grass because they're approaching. And here we have Ari. Kabidi tells that one of the kids is still missing, so he goes out there to go find him. And right before he's about to get shot, Ari comes in and rescues him. He somehow sneaks behind the crew and starts up their truck, but he was never inside the truck. It was really a diversion so he could escape with the kid and the rest of the family. He burns the truck after a little bit of a drive and they have to walk the rest of the way. Along the trip though, they see this lady that's laid up against a tree. She was badly bruised, beaten, and very monotone. Who knows what she went through before they got to her. They take her along as they have to all cross the river. But while getting in the river, she breaks away from the group and basically floats away to drown herself. He tried to swim to get to her, but she's gone by at this point. It made you wonder what she went through leading up to this point. On their journey, they cross by a refugee camp in Sudan, and they get pulled up on by some soldiers. They all think they're going to die, but they just imprisoned everybody for the time being. But the next day, they end up getting left free by this guy that heard that Ari was in the area. And because he pretty much saved them, he agrees to go back to Israel. Back at Mossad headquarters, he gets scolded by his boss about how reckless and dangerous he's been. He explains how his wife left him and he's basically consumed by his work. Then he explains to his bosses his plan about how to get refugees from Sudan to Jerusalem. Now obviously they can't do it by plane because they'll cover the checkpoints, so he comes up with the idea of renting out a fake hotel there and getting the refugees over at night by boat. And consider the fact they're not too worried about Africa, they think this plan is ridiculous and damn near impossible. And in hindsight, when I heard how it was laid out, I kinda had to agree. But nevertheless, because of his reputation, they went full-fledged ahead with his plan. And homie gets to spend a little bit of time with his daughter. She was drawing pictures of the family and he asks, "Where am I at?" And she says, "You're not in the picture because you're at work." A clear metaphor that states he's been way too busy with work. Probably another reason why his wife is divorcing him. The next day he gets on a plane, starts getting his crew together, one by one. Getting a doctor to come was a very hard bargain, but he made it happen. 3 weeks later, everybody's ready to go. Getting their fake names together, passports, all that. It's an extremely dangerous mission, but nevertheless, they get through customs and make their way to this quote-unquote hotel. But first, they have to stop at the Ministry of Tershlam to buy the hotel. The price was supposed to be $250,000 a year, but he doubled it. He said, "Look, I'll give you $350." They made the deal pop and everything's good. And they finally reached the hotel, which was pretty much run down when they got there. Which they should have expected. It's been closed for like almost a decade. They end up finding a harpoon gun, but then one of them inside notices this week's paper. He notices a fish that's hanging that's fresh. Ari goes inside and notices a cigarette that's still lit. So yeah, you got visitors, nigga. They check around back and there's a bunch of people out back. Apparently these are the people that are going to help out with the hotel. Later on that night, Ari meets up with Kabide so he can figure out the routes to save more refugees. And this woman gets a heartfelt story about how her husband died, her brother's sick, and her mom is terminally ill. Telling them they barely have any food and water, and they need to hurry up and try to get everybody out of here to safety. And yeah, he understands. Because he knows they're getting killed every second he waits, you know what I mean? So they get back to the hotel, all of a sudden they see a bus coming, it's like, oh shit. But it ends up being a bus full of Germans, and they actually came to really stay in the hotel. So you're thinking to yourself, it's not really a hotel, it's really a front to smuggle refugees out of there, but the problem is, these Germans end up finding brochures about the hotel. But they can't send them away because people think something's up, so they actually use it as a hotel. Later on that night, they're testing out the frequencies on the radio to make sure it matches up with the car radios. And they go to a spot where Kabide says all these refugees are going to come up. They all show up, they get them in the trucks. But when they're driving, they found out one of the routes they put up a checkpoint at. It was an unexpected checkpoint with 2 people, but Ari says, "Fuck it, we're going to drive straight through it." Yeah, it really was only 2 guards there. And they drive straight through. The radios are also there to keep contact with the bosses to make sure the boats get out to sea. They put everybody on life rafts, and they get picked up. 174 people on this trip alone. Later on, Ari talks about this story about how his mom abandoned him and his dad left him, whatever like that. But where he was raised up at was the way he was supposed to grow up today. So he was better off being raised there because he would have died if he was still with his mom. I mean, he's a good guy, but we get more of an understanding of why he does this so much. He does it all at the risk of losing his wife, his daughter, his life. I mean, pretty much everything. Meanwhile, the boss is scolding his soldiers for letting trucks get through. But he said he shot at the van or the bus and the truck. And he said the driver looked white, so his antennas go up. So eventually he's about to find his hotel. By the way, he's a leader of a Musrad clan that wants to wipe out refugees from trying to leave. And of course he heads over to the hotel. He goes to inspect their trucks, but he doesn't find anything, no bullet holes in the truck or nothing. So obviously one of his soldiers lied to keep from getting killed. They didn't find anything and it's all good for now. And they basically continue on like this for 2 years. 2 years, really? Come on. Hold up. Wait a minute, yo. You mean to tell me for 2 years straight, they were getting refugees from Sudan to Jerusalem from this fake hotel, probably crossing multiple different checkpoints to get to the same beach and get them out of there by boat and got right under infidels' noses? Like, really? We're talking 1979 to 1981. Maybe this was inspired by true events, but I'm skeptical. Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, really? Well, anyway, back at some of the refugee camps, these infidels are getting very hostile. He ends up lining them up and ends up killing like all 30 of them, but not before finding out that Kabede was the one leading this brigade. The next day, the inspector gets a call about the massacre I just explained. Yeah, bodies just laid out, man. He goes to visit Ari to make sure he's not up to any funny business. But Ari's not going to tell him everything that he's doing. But then he says something about Kabede. So then the crew and everybody else is thinking themselves the same thing, like, man, they know something's up. Like, basically, we got to pull back on the mission. But he's telling them, like, look, there's like thousands more we still have to try and rescue, at least do our part, you know what I'm saying? Later on, he talks to Kabede and says, look, man, they on to you, you got to fall back. He tells him to get on the truck with everybody else, but Kabede's like, nah, I got to stay here and make sure the mission gets done. I got to save everybody. But Ari's definitely got that feeling like something's about to go wrong. They try getting him out to sea, but the infidels are onto him. The military guy ends up getting shot, but they get everybody out to sea before they reach the beach. So Ari and the doctor give themselves up so they can stop the search. Meanwhile, Kabede makes it back to his home, where he's about to be greeted by the squad because they was watching him. Back at the hotel, the rest of the crew is trying to figure out what's going on with the team leader. And of course, him and his doctor friend are locked up. They hash out their beef while they're in there. He thinks they're going to get tortured or die in here because they think they're going to find out their real identities. But our homegirl gets past customs and makes it to the Ministry of Tersham and asks our man to bail Ari out. He gets them out, they all good and gravy. But when they get back to the hotel, their boss is there. And he basically tells them he's going to shut down the mission. Because simply put, too many people are dying and he's not trying to have that on his conscience. And he understands where he's coming from, but he's still thinking to himself, he's still trying to save more people. What he's basically saying is, if you're going to do this, you're doing this on your own. He can't get nobody else to help him out at this point. So later on, they go to find Kabede, who was badly bruised and beaten. Who was still down with the cause, by the way. He's still trying to feed everybody in his family. He tells everybody, you don't have to stay if you want to, but bottom line is, I'm staying. Everybody else agrees to stay too. By nightfall, these fools come by the hotel just to check up on niggas. And once again, they find nothing. Meanwhile, they sneaking them through the back of the hotel. I'm just thinking to myself, how the fuck did nobody see him? You know what I'm saying? Anyway, one guard opens the door and finds them in a room, but she has to L him out, choke him out, you know what I'm saying? She's the only guard that knew. They basically gotta keep him in the room and away from everybody else. After he talks a bunch of shit, he finally leaves. But he knows they're going to be back soon. He goes to talk to the inspector and basically pleads on his heartstrings. Basically saying there's no way he can go by boat this time, so he needs a plane to charter 400 refugees out. So then after that, they make the drive to an old Air Force landing strip and start putting lights down. But they gotta hurry because our man got word of the situation. The plane finally gets there, but they can only fit about half the people in there because of the plane capacity. He tells them it's not enough room on the plane. So then they get the brilliant idea to start removing all the seats off the plane. I don't even know if I would have thought to do that. Well, anyway, here come these niggas. But they too late. The plane takes off safely, and they all safe. At that time, thousands of Ethiopian refugees were smuggled out with the help of the Israeli Army, Navy, and Air Force. To this day, you still got about 65 million people still in prison in refugee camps. It's definitely a powerful movie, and I highly recommend it. I mean, I know I do talk my shit, but it really is inspirational and uplifting. The Red Sea Diving Resort on Netflix. Check it out. Like, click, subscribe, do all that. You already know what it is. Slick these, y'all, the easy mister. Ow, big. You got that slogan.